Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm Michael Hagan from the class of 2015, and I'm joined by producer Chris Judge from the class of 2005. Today we're joined by Matthew Hicks, Providence College's Director of Orientation, Transitions, and Leadership, and Jaclyn Coppinger, a Summer Orientation Coordinator and rising senior from the class of 2023. We'll be discussing the exciting plans for the upcoming First Day in Friartown events for incoming students, as well as the main event, Move-In Day and Fall Orientation at the end of August. Matthew, Jaclyn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So Jaclyn, to get us started, I want to hear a little bit about your memories from your new student orientation back in 2019. We'll talk a little bit about First Day in Friartown soon, but for now, tell me about moving in and settling in for the fall semester your first year. How did you feel on the way to and arriving to campus?
Sure. I definitely, when I think back on moving into campus in 2019, it was certainly an overwhelming time. I had never been away from home for more than a few nights, so moving to college was obviously a big transition. I certainly overpacked more. I thought I could fit a lot more in a McVinney double than I actually could. But overall, yeah, just that excitement, but also like some serious feelings of homesickness setting in, but certainly excited for classes and all that was to come.
And what were your days of orientation like once you got there?
Action-packed for sure, which is a great thing. They definitely tried to keep us busy, which I appreciated because, again, feeling that like adjustment period and having a lot of events to do and programming, going to all the different sessions, and then we jumped right into classes and like academic convocation and all of these things. I think it's really helpful with the orientation schedule being so robust that students have an opportunity to get out of their rooms and be doing things that aren't just sitting there thinking about how they're all of a sudden in college and have to figure it all out.
And where is home for you, Jaclyn?
Dragut, Massachusetts.
All right, so Matthew, you're a newer face on campus having arrived in the last year. Can you tell us a little bit about your path to Providence College?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an especially exciting summer and fall for me as well, because I get to go through the process of being welcomed into the Providence College community along with all of our new students. So it's very exciting for me. This will actually, Michael, be my 10th summer of orientation. So that started for me back in Jaclyn's type of role as an orientation leader on campus. I loved it so much. You know, for me, I'm a first generation college student myself. And so seeing the potential to help students as they're transitioning in, support family members through what can be a challenging experience to navigate, and making that an easier and more enjoyable experience for students was something that was really exciting. So I'm a native New Englander, but I've spent the last 8 years actually traveling at the University of Tennessee, at Towson University in Maryland, and at the University of Maryland, working in orientation and first year experience. But I'm really excited to be here in the Providence College community. It's been such a fantastic and welcoming experience for me that I'm excited to give that back to our new students and families.
So as somebody who's been working with orientation programs for quite some time, can you tell us a little bit about why are orientation programs so important? And what does a good orientation program achieve?
Absolutely. I think, at its base, an orientation program is a really holistic experience. I think what's really fantastic is that it's this coming together event for everybody across the community. I often say, as somebody working in orientation, that it's not my job to run orientation. It's my job just to help get everybody together and get everybody on the same page, because it's truly a collaborative environment for new students and families to meet all the offices on campus and all the staff. But I think even more than that, what it gives students the opportunity to do is to meet their peers, to meet fellow incoming new students, start making new social connections, new friends. So many of the orientation leaders tell me that they want to be orientation leaders because they met their best friends at orientation and have built these really strong relationships, and it sticks with them. And those upperclassmen students, we have orientation leaders that help guide our new students and give them an authentic, real experience of what it means to be a PC student. So for all of those reasons, orientation can be a really impactful experience.
So First Day in Friartown programs for new students are coming up very soon, later this month, in fact. So Jaclyn, what can students expect at their First Day in Friartown event?
Sure. So First Day in Friartown can, for some students, be their first time on campus. So it's great that it gives an opportunity for students to kind of get acclimated with just the setting and being on campus, even if it's just for one day. But students will meet with some familiar faces on campus. Of course, they will open up with an address from Dr. Stephen Sears, the face of it all. And then they'll meet with other folks over from student life and student affairs. They'll meet with their faculty or departmental faculty based on their major, or if they are undeclared and what the undeclared program will look like for them. And then they'll have an opportunity to have lunch with the June orientation staff, which will be a great opportunity for students to mingle with current students here at PC. And then they'll have some time for reflection with the OLs as well. And then they'll register for their courses, which is kind of the main reason why we have students come to campus for first day in Friartown. But there's so many other parts to it in addition to just registering for their classes.
Should new students be nervous about registering for courses?
No, there will be, I can understand it being kind of a nervous time for students having, you go from high school to registering for your classes and kind of picking your own path in the classroom for the first time. But there will be, like I said, faculty members from the different departments and members of the staff from the undergraduate dean's office and academic advising, and then students who have gone through registration for each semester too, that will be there to support them. And like I said, or like I always say, if you don't get the class you want, they're fortunate that they have 8 semesters to take that course. So it's definitely, it doesn't need to be as nerve-wracking as I think it may come across to be.
So year after year, orientation is a success because of the people involved in making it happen. Matt, what has it been like working with Jaclyn and other students to plan First Day in Friartown and fall orientation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what makes it so fun really is Jaclyn, the other orientation coordinators. For the fall, we have an additional 5 orientation coordinators. And you can, I think, just hear through the mic, even Jaclyn's excitement and authentic love for Providence College. And it's really important for me that it leads the way. Michael, I know at the beginning you mentioned you're a class of 2015 graduate as well. I think incoming students think that we are both old already, right? And so with Jaclyn leading the way, it creates a more authentic and genuine connection. And Jaclyn and her peers are the ones living the PC experience right now. So who better, right? Who better to inform the programming, the fun social events in the fall, as well as the important conversations in small groups that happen, and just, those small details, how to get around campus the quickest, what's the best food in the dining hall. All those things are really important as students transition in.
Jaclyn, how would you describe the Providence College Corps of student orientation leaders?
I think the first word that comes to mind for me when I think of my peers that are on the orientation staff, it's this genuine enthusiasm for the work that we do. Everyone, you become an OL because you want to give that experience to someone that you had, or maybe that you didn't have during your orientation when you were a first year student. But yeah, my peers are so excited to meet the incoming class or the transfer students that we'll be able to interact with and just share our love for Providence College with the growing community.
So without giving too much away, what does fall orientation at the end of August have in store for new students?
We have a lot planned for fall orientation. So essentially what happens is that students will join us on move-in day, whether they're residential students or our commuters. Residential students will move in, and then we will guide them through the first day, go through some annual events and signature programs that first day, including welcome mass, including the class of 2026 photo, which is always a really fun event. And then we have a lot of really fun social programming planned. And so we partner with the Office of Campus Activities and Cultural Programming. So all 4 days of orientation, there will be social events all night long. Throughout the day, we also have educational programs to help students feel comfortable on campus and get used to what it means to be a Friar and be a part of the Providence College community. And throughout each of those 4 days in the fall, students will get 2 orientation leaders that will guide them through the day, lead small group sessions. It's a lot of icebreakers. It's a lot of fun. And by the time we get to the first day of classes, students are always really excited and really prepared.
So what are each of you looking forward to most in fall orientation in August? We can start with Jaclyn.
Sure. So I am kind of in a unique position where as far as orientation, I just do the summer, but I'm actually a student worker for the Office of Student Activities and Cultural Programming. So I'll get to be a part of the fun stuff. And I think that's what really makes Friartown feel like home is those events that we have at night, the free food, the novelties, the things that people can take back to their room with them and meet different students. So I'm really excited for the casino night and the carnival and all of those really fun events that are so unique to orientation that in 3 years, people will look back and be like, I remember those first few nights here.
Yes, drawing on my own memories from my orientation, if I have any advice for new students, it is come ready to eat because they they will feed you at every opportunity during orientation. Matthew, what does the college do to make sure that students are both safe and feel welcome at orientation programs? You know, this being the first few days in a big transition. How do we make students safe and welcome?
Michael, I mentioned earlier that I've kind of had a little bit of a journey in working at different institutions, but something that's jumped out to me right away being at Providence College is this concept of the Friar Family. And it's really an authentic, genuine sense on campus that when you're a part of the Providence College community, when you're a student here, other students look out for you. And I think students get the first example of that through orientation and through their orientation leader. I know most orientation leaders like to think of themselves as an older sibling, really kind of guiding them through those 4 days, making sure that they feel all right. It can be a little emotionally overwhelming at times, right? And the orientation leader is there to help guide you. They give honest advice. They give personal advice. They really get to know you. You spend a lot of time together in those 4 days. And so it really does become this bond that you have. And what I love so much is so many students tell me that they continue to be mentored and guided by their orientation leader well into the semester, oftentimes well through graduation. So for me, there's no better sense of safety and belonging than, having that authentic connection with an upperclassmen student.
So some new students, while excited, are understandably nervous about leaving home and moving on to a college campus. What advice do each of you have for students to help ease that transition? Jaclyn?
Sure. I have a few pieces of advice for students. My first would be to try and get out of their residence hall as much as possible. We mentioned all the social programming that will happen, and that doesn't end with orientation. That is throughout the semester. There's always something to do for students here on campus. And, whether the nightlife scene is for you or not, there is something to do. And I think that's what's so unique and special about Providence College so encouraging students to, even if it's for 30 minutes or an hour, to leave their residence hall and just try and go mingle. And then my other piece of advice would, with that first week of classes, to ask someone that they sit next to grab lunch or, put themselves out there, because one, everyone is in the same boat. Everyone wants to make friends and find that sense of belonging. And the best thing that happens is you become friends, and the worst thing, it was a 30-minute awkward lunch. But I think there's really an opportunity for students, and it can be uncomfortable and awkward to put yourself out there, but it's what I think is best for anyone coming into this transitionary period.
Yeah, I personally can attest that, some of the friends that I made in my days at orientation are still friends today. Now, how many years later? Like 10 years, 11 years later. So yes, I definitely agree. Students should go out of their way to meet people. And you're right. There's no harm done if it's just a short meal and nothing else comes of it. So Matt, what about you? Advice for students to ease the transition?
Yeah, I think this will support a little bit what Jaclyn's talking about, but I kind of have a two-part piece of advice. And, it's really, for me, be ready to step outside of your comfort zone. Providence College has so many things to offer in terms of exploring academic interests, in terms of exploring clubs and organizations. We have over 100 clubs and organizations some of them specializing on topics that you may have never heard of before coming to college, right? This is a really great opportunity for you to make different types of friends and explore different types of activities than you did in high school. But part two of that for me is to give yourself time. I think sometimes students feel that they need to find their best friend right away. And some people do at orientation, just like Michael, you were talking about. Sometimes it's those friends of the friends. Sometimes it takes a couple weeks. Sometimes it takes, checking out 2 or 3 clubs before you find one that you really love. But I tell everybody, if you just keep trying in that first semester, you're going to find your thing. You're going to find your people. So be ready to step outside your comfort zone and give yourself time. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Absolutely. So Matt, what are parents' roles in helping students transition to college and make the most out of orientation?
Absolutely. Parents and family members can be such a positive point of support for new students. What I always like to tell the family members and parents of students is that you have a tremendous opportunity to empower the success of your student. So during our first day in Friartown, we do have a parent and family program. They have the opportunity to go through a full orientation separate from their student, but getting unique support. And our offices on campus are really ready to help share that knowledge, share that information, so that when it's move-in day and you drop off your student, you have the ability to advocate and say, okay, I know you're running into this challenge. Here is who you go and talk to on campus. Here is who you call. Here's the office you visit. And really empowering your student to advocate for themselves allows them to take ownership over their college experience and feel more confident and comfortable, not only as students, but just as people, as folks maturing into a adult role. So I would really encourage family members to soak in all the information through the orientation process and then be ready to empower your students to advocate for themselves.
And to whom should new students reach out if they have questions about first day in Friartown or fall orientation?
Yeah, we have a very excited set of professional staff members here in the orientation office, as well as our student leaders. I think the easiest way to get us is to either email us at orientation@providence.edu, reach out to us via phone, 401-865-1085, and you can find that information as well on our website, which is Orientation Transitions Leadership at providence.edu. You also can just, use Google and type in OTL Providence College, and you'll get all the information you need from us. And we're happy to triage and help you out and be a part of that transition experience.
All right, and we will be sure to include all of that contact information and those web addresses in the show notes, so check there if you have any questions for Matt or others on staff in orientation and student affairs. So Matt, Jaclyn, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a really wonderful conversation. It sounds like students have a lot to be excited for this summer. And any last words before we sign off?
I'd just like to say welcome home to the class of 2026, and we are so excited to meet you and help you reassure that choosing Providence College is the right decision.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for joining us. Subscribe to the Providence College Podcast in all the usual places, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify, as well as your smart speaker. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Thanks for listening, and go Friars.